Let's finally pour one out for the PS4. The end is here for real. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I don't know if any of you out there take cod liver vitamins. I don't know what they're called, like liver oil, cod oil vitamins, but man, when you burp after you have one of those, top 10 most disgusting tastes ever in your mouth. I'm sorry to ruin your day, but I had to share that because I burped like 2 seconds before I started filming this, and I want bad things to happen to me right now. Anyway, in addition to the end of the PS4, you can save a lot of money on PlayStation accessories on PlayStation Direct right now. It's really easy. And then guys, it finally happened. Need for Speed looks like it's done for a while, and I'm very upset about it. I haven't done this in a while, but since you're here, I'll ask you nicely. It would help me out a lot if you subscribed and set your notifications to all. I can't believe I'm over 200,000 subscribers, but you know, it would be nice to have that number just a little bit higher for vanity reasons entirely. All right, let's just get into this first news story here. So we have been talking about the PS4 for pretty much this entire generation. Not even pretty much. For this entire generation, the PS4 has been more relevant than any previous gen console has ever remained in its following consoles generation, because people will not give up on the PS4 and neither will Sony. Half of the people who are on PS4 still have not upgraded to the PlayStation 5, even with the Slim and the Pro out there. And Sony just continues to support it, so they're encouraging people really not to upgrade, but that looks like it's coming to an end. And I have two news stories to back that up. So the first one has to do with PlayStation Plus. I mean, PlayStation Plus has been around so long that it's actually phased out multiple generations. You used to get PS3 games, obviously. They got rid of those because there's no PS3 backwards compatibility. You used to get Vita games, and they ran out of Vita games, honestly. Like, I'm pretty sure they gave away like 80% of the Vita's library before they took away those games. We used to get PSVR games, and of course those don't work on the PSVR 2, so they got rid of those. And now the PS4 is being eliminated from the PlayStation Plus Essential catalog. So like, they're still probably going to keep adding them to the extra and premium catalog as time goes on, but in the offerings of free monthly games that you can add to your account and keep forever, yeah, they're getting rid of PlayStation 4 games after this month. I've seen a lot of people upset about this, but I really don't know how many games there are left to actually give away on PlayStation Plus. Like, if you look up pretty much any heavy hitting first party game at the very least, that has shown up on PS Plus Essential at least once. Like God of War 2018, I'm pretty sure God of War Ragnarok was just on there. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, there's so many great games that have been given away. I feel like they're just running out of games, and this signals more to me that they really just want to cut the bull and get people on the PlayStation 5. Like, they're just going through and eliminating reasons for people to continue owning a PlayStation 4 without degrading the overall experience. Like, they've given away more than enough, I would say, PS4 games where it's like not warranted, but like not something I'm really upset about to see them get rid of it. But the other sign that the PS4 generation is finally ending is a lot more clear in my opinion, and it has to do with sports games. So if you've been around a while like I have, you've seen multiple generations of consoles. The last games to come to a console as long as humanly possible are sports games and Just Dance. Like, by the time the Switch was coming out, the Wii, I'm pretty sure, was still getting Just Dance games and other sports games. The Vita got multiple iterations of sports games after Sony ended support for it. Like, no matter what console is out there, it will get a sports game as long as possible. And one of the biggest franchises in sports gaming is the show. It's the only MLB licensed game out there, I'm pretty sure, and Sony makes it first party. Things got a little weird with that franchise a couple of years ago when the MLB came to Sony and said, yeah, cut the bullshit. You're not keeping that exclusive anymore. You need to port it to Nintendo Switch and you need to port it to Xbox, or we'll take the license away and give it to someone else. I mean, those games are just easy money makers. You know, they take work to make, obviously. Like, San Diego Studio is doing a good job with them, but like, I'm assuming the investment in the newest MLB The Show game is a lot lower than something like God of War Ragnarok or Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophecy. So having a live service sports game like that, it's good to have that running in the background printing money. So Sony gave in. They started porting it to other platforms like the Switch and Xbox. Weirdly enough, not PC, which sucks because I'd love to have it on Steam Deck, but they also had that game on Game Pass for the last couple of years. And now everything is changing because in addition to the fact that it's not going to be on Game Pass, which is good because that's stupid. I don't think Sony should have any game on Game Pass that they actually make because that just encourages that crappy service to continue to be proliferated, which I don't like because I'd prefer to be able to just buy my games going forward. Also, they're getting rid of the PS4 version. And honestly, I thought the show would continue coming to PS4 forever, right? Like it still runs on the PS4. I did some research. It's not great. Like there's still frame drops and everything like that, but like the game is functional. And I feel like those people who buy a console to buy the new sports game every year and the new Call of Duty, they got to be the least plugged into like things like frame time and frame rate and everything like that. So as long as the game is functional, I thought Sony would just continue releasing it forever, but they're not. They're not doing the show this year on PS4. So that combined with, you know, getting rid of games in PS Plus Essential in the PS4 generation, I think they're finally winding down support for this machine. And I think it's too late, honestly. Like we are more than halfway through this generation. Apparently there's only 2 years left in it. The PS5 Pro is out. I think Sony really hurt themselves by keeping the games coming to PS4 this long. Of course, they make money off the games, so that helps. And they want to have the PlayStation brand spread out as far as possible. But all of that aside, like don't release a new console if you're not ready to get off of the old one. I know the PS4 and the PS4 Pro are long in the tooth, but it doesn't matter if you're making games that still support that console. Like it's artificially holding back gaming to have to support consoles that are over 10 years old at this point. And it's not like PC tech, right? Like by the time the PS4 came out, it was already like old tech. It wasn't anything new or exciting if you had a good gaming PC. So it was already aged by the time it came out because they held it back because of the recession. So to continue that one past the 10-year mark and still support it as much as they did, I think that was a mistake. Like it was short-term gains for long-term losses. And I think the PS5 would be much farther ahead in terms of sales and just quality of games if they cut the cord a little bit sooner and moved developers and gave developers really no choice on whether or not they'd continue to support PS4. I think we'd also see a lot less remakes and remasters if that was the case because, you know, they'd actually spend time supporting the new hardware, which would be exciting for them to try new things instead of just regurgitating old things with a new graphics wrapper over it. And the reason I think I know in my heart that the PS4 generation went on too long is because I have a slight feeling of apathy about it, right? Like it lasted long enough where I had the initial hype period when it came out. I loved it throughout its entire generation. I was excited for the PS5 and I was like, I like the PS4. It can stick around for a little while. And now I'm looking at it in a sort of negative light where it's holding back the two consoles I bought, the PS5 and the PS5 Pro. And when you hit that point where your audience, your hardcore audience who absolutely loves PlayStation is kind of feeling a little apathetic about the console that you're still supporting, I think that's the point where you've gone too far and it's time to cut the cord. So yeah, I think Hideaki Nishino is going through Sony with an iron scythe. I don't really know this metaphor at all, but he's going through the cornfield of Sony with a scythe and just cutting everything down, trying to get things back in order. He's working directly under Hiroki Totoki, and I'm glad. But yeah, if you're one of the 50% out there who haven't upgraded yet, clock is ticking. Sony is giving up on the console that you're probably holding together with duct tape. But at this point, I mean, you might want to just wait for the PS6. It's only 2 years, and then you'll have a huge backlog of cheap games from the PS5 generation to play through while you're waiting for new PS6 games. Because I'm assuming we're going to see the exact same thing, where in the PS6 generation, they're going to continue to support the PS5 and PS5 Pro as long as humanly possible. Speaking of upgrades though, Sony's running a great sale right now over on PlayStation Direct for their accessories, including stuff like the DualSense Edge, the regular DualSense, console covers, and the PlayStation Portal. It's a pretty cut and dry discount where if you spend $100 or more, they'll take 20% off the total price. So obviously the better deal is to spend more. So if you bought a PS Portal, it's $200, like 20% off of that would be $40. It'd be $160. That's a pretty good deal. It would be roughly the same price for the DualSense Edge. I checked, it looks like the black one is included in this. So if you've been waiting for the midnight black DualSense Edge, it could be time to pick that up. If you got a PS5 Slim and you want to get some console covers, those are cheaper. So you'd have to buy either 2 sets or combine that with something like the DualSense Edge or a regular DualSense. But the point is you can mix and match it however you want and get 20% off. I can't even do affiliate links, so you know this is a genuine recommendation to at least check it out. I looked at the sale. It says included items only. I'm assuming other things are in there too, like headsets like the Pulse Explorer and Pulse Elite. I would stay away from the Pulse Explorer. I love the Pulse Elite. But yeah, head over to PlayStation Direct, give it a look and see if there's anything cool there because they don't do discounts like this that often. And that brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about in this video, the rare game update here on the channel. So Need for Speed, it's one of my favorite franchises. I'll never forget, I was at the mall with my mom. She was doing Christmas shopping way back in like 2003 or 2004, and she would drop me off at GameStop. I'd play with the demo kiosks, and one time I was there, they just had Need for Speed Underground, the full game. It wasn't even a demo. They just had that running on a PS2 connected to a TV over there, and I played it for what felt like hours. It was probably about 30 or 45 minutes while my mom was shopping, but you know, time goes slower when you're a kid. So I was playing this racing game for hours at the store, and I begged her when she picked me up to buy me that game because I loved it so much. I have sunk so many hours into Need for Speed over the years, and ever since Need for Speed 1 in 1994, there has never been a longer than 3-year gap between these games, and there have been 25 different Need for Speed games. And while I picked it up with Need for Speed Underground, I think I've owned every single Need for Speed game since then, except for Shift 2, Nitro, and whatever one released on the DS. Like the mainline series that included Underground, Most Wanted, Pro Street, Undercover, Carbon, freaking Shift 2 Unleashed, Unbound, Heat. I've owned every single Need for Speed game that was on a mainline console. It was honestly one of the first games I picked up with my PS4, Need for Speed Rivals, and it's always been one of my favorite gaming franchises. Like, it's really always ahead of its time. When a new one comes out, everyone hates it. A lot of people wait till it's on sale, then they pick it up, and then 2 years later when the next one comes out, they're like, no, Need for Speed Payback was actually the best. It wasn't the worst Need for Speed like we thought. It's just a cool franchise because it's ahead of its time. It's got cool cars. It's one of the only truly arcade open world racing series out there. Like, Forza Horizon's cool and Motorfest copied it and everything, but I'm sick of the festival aspect to these games. I like Need for Speed because it's like true street racing fun, and it's like edgy, and it has a good soundtrack, except for Unbound, which has a terrible soundtrack. And I was hoping, because there's never been more than a 3-year wait, that we would have one coming out relatively soon, and it looks like for the first time in this series' entire history, it's on ice, which really blows. So EA had this weird thing going on where Ghost Games took over the franchise around Need for Speed Rivals, I want to say. So they did Rivals, then they did 2015, then they did Heat, and then Criterion kind of asked to take over the franchise once again, and the team from Ghost Games was kind of absorbed into Criterion, and they're a different satellite studio now. EA also bought Codemasters in between, so I figured we'd be getting at least some good racing output from EA. That is not the case. And when Criterion took over, they made Unbound, which apparently didn't sell as well as EA wanted. So Vince Zampella, who's running all the studios at EA, took everyone from Criterion and said, you're working on Battlefield now. So Criterion basically caused the elimination of Ghost Games, and then they got put on Battlefield. And now suddenly, despite owning Codemasters and a plethora of other racing franchises and studios, there's no one to work on Need for Speed. So they announced that it's on ice for right now. They said they're collecting feedback on Unbound because they did an extra year of content, but like, I really hope we get another Need for Speed. I like Horizon a lot. I think it's a great game. It's coming to PS5. I'll talk about that in the next video, but it's just not the same. Like, Horizon is built on Forza's engine, and Forza is a motorsport game. Like, it's more sim racing than it is arcade, and you can put the festival, you can put the soundtrack in, you can put the goofy off-roading and the cool set pieces and everything like that, but the core driving experience in Forza is much different than the driving experience in Need for Speed. Like, playing Forza with a controller feels like a detriment, whereas playing Need for Speed with a wheel feels like a detriment. And I feel like there should always be some sort of street racing franchise going on because there's no competition. Thankfully, there are a lot of indie games popping up in the same sort of vein as Need for Speed, like Tokyo Extreme Racer 2025 just came out in early access on PC. It's excellent. JDM Japanese Drift Master is coming out, I think, in March. Assetto Corsa Evo is kind of messing around with the arcade feel, but there's just nothing like Need for Speed, and I'm bummed that they kind of created this situation where they, despite once again owning a bunch of racing studios and developers, don't have anyone to work on this game in favor of Battlefield. Like, I like Battlefield. I think it's cool. A lot of my friends love it. It's a game I can hop on with them and just chat and shoot the shit at the end of the week. But like, if you give me the choice of Battlefield or a new Need for Speed, I'm choosing Need for Speed every time because those are games that I get excited to buy every single year, or every 2 years, or every 3 years now. And I hope it's just not that long before it comes back. But anyway, that about wraps it up for today's video. So as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.